This video is to allow you to correct your homework for section 3.2.3. So the first thing they want you to notice in the math notes is that there is a connection between addition and subtraction of integers. So again, this is where our keep, change came from. So if you have -3 minus -2, which equals -1, that's the same as keep the -3, change the subtraction to addition, and change the sign from -2 to +2. And you get the same answer. So again, this is where we talk about our keep, change. And that only happens again when we have subtraction of integers. So you may want to make yourself a note about that, but this is also built into your toolkit. So they want us to copy and simplify. So if we have 6 plus -18, again, if it's addition, we do not make any changes. All right. This keep, change is only for subtracting integers. So 6 plus -18, we're not going to change anything. These two are opposite sign numbers. So we subtract them, we get 12. And the question is it positive 12 or negative 12? It's negative 12. And again, the reason it's negative 12 is because 18 is pulling more in a negative direction than 6 is in a positive direction. Same thing here. These are opposites we're adding. So we find the difference between them, which is 12 and a half. And it's negative 12 and a half because 25 is pulling more in a negative direction than 12 and a half is in a positive direction. Here, these are both negative. We're adding two negative numbers, so we're just going to combine them. -9 plus -9 is -18. Here, you may want to show some steps because you might want to combine first the two positives and make it -12 and 2/10 plus, when we combine that, it looks like we're going to get 21 and 9/10. These are opposite signs, so we'd subtract them, and the answer will be positive because 21 and 9/10 is pulling more in a positive direction than -12 and 2/10 is in a negative direction. So we end up getting 9 and 7/10. Here they want you to do them, of course, without a calculator, and draw a diagram or use words to explain how you know your product makes sense. So 6 times -3, that's 6 groups of -3. So for your diagram, you could do 6 groups of -3. Sorry. And it looks like we need one more group. Okay, 6 groups of -3. Well, 6 groups of -3 would be just -18. You could also explain it in words. Okay, you could say, I have 6 groups of -3, which I know means I have a total of -18. Here, you might go, well, this is a little strange. I have -6 times 3. Well, remember, you can change the order when you multiply, not change the answer. So you could think of this as 3 groups of -6. So you could show 3 groups of -6 and then explain your answer to be -18. Again, you could also do that in words. You could say, this is the same as 3 groups of -6. Now, here it gets a little bit trickier because we have a negative times a negative. Well, we know a negative times a negative is a positive, and the reason for that is, explained in multiple ways. You can think of it as 0 minus -8 times -3, and your keep, change means that this ends up being positive. So we end up getting 0 plus 24, or just 24. Now, you could also just explain a negative times a negative equals a positive. Here, anything times 0, of course, is going to be 0. Division, again, if you had shown 20 negatives and put them into groups of 5, you'd see that there's -4 in each group. And if you had -36 and you put them in groups of -9, you would find that there are 4 groups. Here they want you to simplify without a calculator. So you need to make sure that you are, explaining your work, showing your work. So 4 times negative 2 and 1/3. Well, I would probably change the 2 and 1/3 to a fraction greater than 1. So that'd be 3 times 2 is 6, plus 1 is 7, over 3. Remember that the sign is going to be staying there with that. And then we're adding to that 7 and 1/6. Okay, so 4 times negative 7/3, you can make that 4 over 1 times negative 7/3, which would be negative 28/3. You could, if you wanted to, change the 7 and 1/6 to, again, a fraction greater than 1, which would be 43/6. You don't have to, but you could. And then you're going to need to show that you get a common denominator. Well, the common denominator would be 6. So you'd have, multiplying by 2 top and bottom here, negative 56 over 6 plus 43 over 6. And we're going to combine them because it's addition. They are opposite signs, so we'll subtract. 56 minus 43 is 13, and it's going to be negative because 56 is pulling more in a negative direction than 43 is in a positive direction. So we would get negative 13 over 6. Oh, I apologize. I see that I wrote this wrong. This is 43 over 6. I am capable of making mistakes too. I apologize. So you get negative 13 over 6, which is the same as negative 2 and 1/6. So to kind of restate what I did, I changed negative 2 and 1/3 to a fraction greater than 1 and multiplied it by 4 over 1. I changed 7 and 1/6 to a fraction greater than 1. I got a common denominator. That means these had to be multiplied by 2 over 2 to get a common denominator of 6. Once I had the common denominator, then I'm looking at combining these. They're opposites, so I subtract, carry the sign of the number that has a greater pole, and then final part was to make it into a mixed number. So that's the kind of work I'm looking for. So these other ones are actually quite a bit easier, but I do want to see work. So here I would want to see that you took the negative 2 times 3, got negative 6. Now you have negative 8 plus negative 6, negative 14. Here I'd want to see that, when you took the negative 5 times the negative 3, you get a positive 15. So I have 4 plus 15 plus negative 7, which would be 19 plus negative 7. That's how we get the 12. Here I'd want to see that you multiplied the two parts and then added at the end, and you end up getting 0. So again, I've done the one where it has the most difficulty, but make sure you're showing your work. Here, I want to see that you change them to common denominator fractions. If you're not good at common denominator fractions yet at this point, you need to work on that. So you're going to change these both to 12ths, and you end up getting 13 twelfths, which is 1 and 1/12. Here, you're going to change them both to a common denominator of 60. Again, show your work. I'm not showing it, but you need to. And you end up getting 11/60ths. Here you're multiplying. You do not have to have common denominators when you multiply fractions. This is also good review. So you can either simplify before you multiply or multiply then simplify. Either way, I want to see the work or the steps. And you end up getting 1/4. Same thing here. You could simplify your 4 and 8 and so on. For 363, Nathan wants you to solve this puzzle. I'm thinking of a number. If I divide my number by 3 and add negative 3, you get 4. What's my number? So the number is 21, and showing the work would be showing that 21 divided by 3, which of course is 7, plus negative 3, would give us a value of 4.